Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Point Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Noah Warren. We're here on New Year's Eve, and we're lucky enough to have back. He's taking his time out. He doesn't celebrate any holidays. He's just working all the time. My good buddy Matt Wright. We're going to be talking some college football today. But Matt, good morning, and thank you for coming on again.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Jug. You're looking forward to talking some college football, and maybe after this podcast, I might have to grab a drink. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, with your Irish slated to play Alabama tomorrow, I think you might have to have more than one.
Yeah, that's going to be quite the game. Like I said, I don't think I'm going to be drinking tonight on New Year's, but after that Notre Dame game, I might need to go pick up a bottle of Irish whiskey.
Yeah.
Win or lose, hit the booze, right?
Right. So, no, absolutely. And so coming into the weekend, we got Alabama playing the Irish. We got Clemson playing Ohio State. So 1-4, Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, Ohio State, 2-3. And let's just start off the podcast by talking about, I love lamenting about stuff. So let's talk about the College Football Playoff Committee. What were your thoughts on the decision weekend and the 4 teams that were selected?
I really didn't like it. I think it really made it look more political than it already is. Everyone knows how political the committee is, and this decision didn't do any justice to help their cause, especially for maybe like the diehard fans like myself who love college football. I'm still going to watch.
Right.
But someone who, is on the fence about whether or not they want to watch, this could really turn people away from the sport. Unfortunately, it comes down to money. But they made a decision at the start of the year that you had to play 6 games. Like, the decision was in. Mm-hmm. So it's not like they were waiting it out and then made a decision. They made a decision at the start of the year and then changed their mind.
And it wasn't like it was the Big Ten. They made that decision. It wasn't the SEC. You know what I mean? They changed the rules just to get Ohio State in there. And it's just a joke.
It's an absolute joke. And the crazy thing is that it's not like the teams that were ranked 5 and were ranked 6 were, Coastal Carolina or
BYU.
BYU or whoever it may be. They had Texas A&M ranked 5th and Oklahoma ranked 6th. Like, those are 2 money-making schools that will still bring in the fan base, still bring in the viewership. Like, you watched Oklahoma last night. I mean, they deserve to be in that top 4. But the crazy thing is that they make this move and it just doesn't benefit. It benefits Ohio State, obviously, but I don't think it benefits anyone else. I think it just looks terrible on college football.
No, I agree with your point about the fan that's kind of on the edge. I think your point's well taken, because if you're a fan of Indiana, maybe you're not going to get in, but why would you watch this if Ohio State's getting in? Like, why would you want to watch that game? Like, no, the fact that A&M didn't get in is crazy to me. A&M makes the most money of any college football team. I don't think people know that, but I read that in Sports Illustrated just before Christmas. They pay their coach the most money. All they do is they print money down there. And you say, okay, Ohio State, we need you in just because we need a Big Ten team. Well, you already bitch slapped the Pac-12 and the Big 12. Like, why does the Big Ten get this special treatment?
It's crazy that the Big Ten gets. It seems like there's 5 power conferences, but then the Big Ten is even more powerful than that in that 5. It's like you have a group of 5 buddies, but 2 of them hang out all the time.
Right.
It's crazy that take a team like Cincinnati. I was watching Cincinnati at one point. Cincinnati was ranked 4th or 5th. They kept winning and they kept dropping out of the rank.
Yeah,
they were dropping week by week. They were dropping one spot from 4th to 5th. To 6th to 7th.
And then eventually they dropped out of the top 10 for a minute.
And all they were doing was winning. And it's like, how does that process make sense in any league where you win and you drop?
I know. And you see these guys for I think ESPN does a good job with their show with Reese Davis and Herb Street and, all those guys. But how do you sit there with a straight face and put your 4 teams and then you see Cincinnati dropping and you don't throw a fuss about it? And it's almost like this fix is in because they know who the 4 teams are going to be already. And they're just like, well, Cincinnati, who gives a shit?
Yeah, it's the elephant in the room, right? Where it's like you can tell they want to talk about it, but they're paid not to, right? They're not technically in your contract. They're probably in their contract not allowed to talk about it.
Right.
So they might say a few things, beat around the bush, but they're not going to say exactly how they feel. deal. But as you say, I'd be pissed if I was a team like, a fan base of Texas A&M. You're not tuning in this weekend. Screw that. Like,
Yeah. No. And, Clemson A&M is more intriguing to me because, well, number one, A&M deserves to be there. And I think, Kellen Mond and Isaiah Spiller is really fun to watch at running back. And just, I don't know. It's just Ohio State. They haven't proved anything. They've beaten Indiana, who is a good team, and Northwestern, who's okay. But, Justin Fields has looked terrible in both those games. And other than that, they've beaten nobody. Like Michigan State, like
Michigan State.
me and you could beat Michigan State.
Michigan State was terrible. Penn State was terrible this year.
Uh-huh.
Beat both of them. And they didn't beat them by a lot. They beat them by maybe 10, 12 points, and they were high-scoring games. Like, their defense hasn't done anything.
No.
They've never, even in those 6 games, like college football, they talk about style points. You get style points, which I'm not a huge fan of, but that's the reality of the situation. But they wouldn't even have many style points from this year, in my opinion. Other than that, one game where the running sermon went off for, 250. Mm-hmm. But other than that, they really haven't proven anything. So that, like, why put them in? Maybe give them the 8th or 9th seed. Give them a good bowl game. I have nothing wrong with giving them a good bowl.
Give them Florida.
Give them Florida. Give them last night's game.
Yeah,
that's a perfect spot for them, and not the top 4.
No, and I feel the worst but Cincinnati too. I mean, they went undefeated, and you can only play who you can play, and you couldn't play out of conference games. And I watched a little bit of Cincinnati. They're a fun team to watch. Like, Desmond Ritter's a good player, and they have a good program there. And I don't know, A&M or Cincinnati worked their asses off all year. And if I was them, I wouldn't even want to play in a bowl game just to stick it to the college football.
I hear you. And know what this really does, Jug? It hurts recruiting for these schools, because a player's going to see this decision and think to themselves, no matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to get in that big game. We could go, Cincinnati potentially could have went undefeated and still not made the bowl, which is crazy to say.
Well, we think of that UCF team. Remember a couple of years ago with Shaquem Griffin there? He has one hand. Yeah. They went undefeated and they were ranked like 15th. Like, it was – I think these schools, all they want is a chance. And I agree with you. Your point is 100% dead on with recruiting. You could have a top recruit and you might say, I don't want to go to Clemson. That's been there, done that. I want to go to Cincinnati and really do something, or Coastal Carolina, whatever. But he's not going to, because his dad's going to tell him, son, you're not going to get any spotlight here, and do you want to win, or do you just want to play for the Outback Bowl, come January?
Look at Alabama. Alabama wasn't even sure. They have, Mac Jones, who's going to Heisman finalist. They have a quarterback waiting next year who just at the start of the season, they didn't know who was going to be the starting quarterback.
Right.
So they have these big schools where these players go there because, they'll sit a year or two and then get into get in their second or third year, because they know they're going to get the spotlight. They know, if they go, 10-1, 11-1, they're going to get even 10-2 or 9-2. They're going to get into the top 4.
Right.
So it's just, the program is so corrupt, and this doesn't help. This committee's decision this year just really doesn't help that. It kind of reinforces all the bad things we think about the committee already.
Right. And, with recruiting, I think it's bad enough already, because these 2 semifinal games this weekend, they could both easily be blowouts. I don't know if they will, but it could definitely be.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Completely agree on that. It's just frustrating. We're both sitting here ranting. We're both going to still tune into the games tomorrow. We're both 100% excited.
5
but just, watching. Yeah. Oh, I'll be watching. But it definitely is frustrating of how the committee runs college sports.
But I'm almost more excited to watch Cincinnati Auburn tomorrow afternoon. Cincinnati's playing. I think it's Auburn, or Auburn might be playing Northwestern. But I'm excited to watch one of those first games before the semifinals.
Yeah, those are going to be. I'm going to tune into those for sure. Those, like you said, those might be even more entertaining, because those are 2 schools trying to say a big FU to the committee.
Yeah.
They want to prove why they should have been there.
Absolutely. Would you want to go to 8 teams? Do you think that would help this situation?
there's pros and cons to it. I know you can't get into a full on, March Madness style
Right.
because in football, your body's just going to get too worn down. You can't play, every third or fourth day.
Right.
That being said, I think there's ways to get around this problem they have right now. I think maybe doing an 8 game or 7 or 8 games, play 7 or 8 games.
Yeah.
And after those 7 or 8 games, the top 24 teams play maybe the next 3 games
Against each
against
other.
each other. So, maybe if you're ranked second, you play maybe fifth, you play 12th, and you play, 22nd. So you just kind of, and then that way, you can take those 3 games that those teams are playing against, the top 24 or top 25 against each other. And that would at least be a better way. You can say, where a 23rd seed beats, Notre Dame or beats Ohio State or beats someone. There's that way. I could see maybe something like that, but they love the idea of, the Big Ten championship and the Pac-12 championship.
And those are such just money grabs.
They don't mean a thing.
No, they're meaningless, those trophies.
I think you can get rid of those games and do like a kind of tournament style
Right.
where you play a round robin, and just not saying that you have to win all 3 games, but at least it would prove who's.
Yeah, it gives you something to brag about other than just winning your conference games.
Exactly. So maybe do a 6 or 7 game, even do a conference, a Pac-12 after your 7th game, or a Big Ten after your 7th game, and then have like a mini tournament style where you do a round robin against, 3 different schools who are all ranked in the top 25.
Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I've never thought about it that way. I was thinking 8 teams. I'm okay with it, but I think there has to be a caveat, which college football will never do, but we're talking as if we can run it. So I think if they do it, at least one team outside the power conference, Power 5 has to be included. Like BYU, Coastal Carolina, like every other year, there's a team that you don't expect to go undefeated for long periods of time. I mentioned UCF earlier. I think they have to be included because otherwise we'll see a 2-win Georgia make the final 8, and I have no interest in watching that.
No, I don't either. I completely agree. Maybe even you do the winner of each, Power 5, and then you do 3 other schools from outside the Power 5.
The best, yeah.
The best of the rest.
Yeah, because you look at Coastal Carolina, like they could have. I think Coastal Carolina might have played the 2 most intriguing games this year. The game against BYU was great. That came down to the wire. And I don't know if you watched their game against Liberty, but that was a hell of a football game. That was so entertaining.
2 awesome football games. That BYU game to me was the game of the year that I watched on TV a lot. Yeah. Like that, I didn't catch much of the Liberty game. I saw bits and pieces. I was at the rink, but that BYU Coastal Carolina game was my favorite game of the year.
Yeah, and those are 2 teams that would never get a shot at the college football playoff, and yet they had the best game. So that just shows what the committee knows and what they like to do. But
money talks.
Exactly. It's everywhere in life, and especially in college football. Let's pivot to Clemson with Trevor Lawrence. Just looking at him, the Jaguars secured the first overall pick in the draft last week just from being inept, being 1-14, and the Jets being the Jets and winning 2 games that they had no business winning. They should have won 3 in a row, really, because the Raiders, the Raiders game, they should have 3 wins. But do you think that the Jags have a franchise quarterback in Trevor Lawrence?
Well, I think this decision with the Jets losing, picking number 2 is actually great. Sometimes, like look at the Rangers and Kako a couple years ago. When you pick 2 and there's 2 guys that you're like, I don't know.
You have no option but to take him.
You have no option. You take the other one and then no one can get mad at you because you didn't really have an option.
Right.
Now, do I think Trevor Lawrence goes first overall? Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think he's a franchise quarterback? We'll see. I think he's a sexy name right now.
Yeah.
Now, whether he can make the franchise relevant, I mean, I hope so, because you look at what Jacksonville was 3 or 4 years ago. They were playing the Patriots in the AFC Championship.
Yeah. If they had a competent quarterback, they would have won that game.
They would have went to the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah.
Which is and look at the fall from grace that they have. And I think that Jacksonville is that team that if they're bad, people really don't care. But if they're good, I think they do have a few pieces there, but they definitely need a quarterback. They're going to take a quarterback first overall. And I do think it's going to be Lawrence. I don't think they're going to take the guy from BYU, Gibson there. They may, but everyone knows Trevor Lawrence. Not many people really, unless you watch BYU, you probably don't even know who the guy is.
No, yeah. If you hear Zach Wilson and you're just like, who?
Yeah, that's the thing. You hear that name, Zach Wilson, and you're like, I who's that, right? And he's ranked to go second overall. So I think they're going to take Lawrence. I hope he can make something happen. Now, like we talked about the last time I was on, are they going to just throw him to the fire, right? Are they going to, what they need to do if they do draft Lawrence is I believe they have to take offensive linemen at least a second or third round, maybe even trade
up. Yeah.
Maybe trade up and get an offensive line, at least 1-2 offensive linemen.
Yeah. You can't, they have the perfect example this year. Just watch Cincinnati. Joe Burrow, they didn't protect him and he got hit over 50 times before his leg went in 3 pieces. Like they definitely need to upgrade their receivers and get him some skill position players. But yeah, O-line is so important now more than ever in the NFL because you can't hit the quarterbacks like you used to, but when players do get their licks, they want to let them know. So, and I like Chark, who they have there. Robinson's 4th in the league in rushing, so he's a promising back. But I actually think it's better. I think it could be better in the long run that he goes to the Jags just for the NFL, just to make the southern, the warm weather teams a little bit more relevant. Jaguars, Miami starting to turn it around. I don't think it's a bad thing to see that area kind of blossom a bit. Tampa Bay.
Yeah, well, the other thing too is there's going to be less pressure if he goes to the Jets.
Absolutely.
If he goes to the Jets, he's going into this mecca of football where it's just so much pressure. Mm-hmm. Whether you're good, there's pressure, and when you're bad, it seems like there's more pressure. So I think him not going to the Jets may be a blessing in disguise, like you said, for the NFL, especially for him too. And then the Jets will probably select the BYU guy, and then for him, I don't think that puts as much pressure on him than if Lawrence goes to the Jets and he goes to Jags. It will be interesting to see. Anything can happen at the draft, but I do think that Lawrence goes first overall.
Yeah, I think it would take some trade package for them to get out of this because, you have a quarterback in your lap. You don't have to do anything to get it. You just have to select him. And, they haven't had a great quarterback in a very long time. So I think it'd be very hard for them to pass up. But he's one of 4 players nominated for the Heisman Trophy, along with Alabama quarterback Mac Jones, Florida quarterback Kyle Trask, and Alabama wide receiver Devontae Smith. So who's your Heisman Trophy winner?
My Heisman Trophy winner is Devonta Smith from Alabama. He is the real deal. Watching him, he is a game changer. He can catch the ball anywhere. His yards after when he catches the ball after that first contact, his yards after that initial contact are insane. His breakaway speed is amazing. He is just an all around. You watch him, you're like, that's a future Hall of Fame or NFL player, which is crazy to say in college. And I don't like saying that, but the last time a wide receiver won the Heisman, I think was in the 90s, maybe.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while. So it'd be nice to see, someone other than a quarterback. My initial, like I talked to you on before we hopped on, I loved Kyle Trask the first half of the year. Mm-hmm. He was my Heisman candidate. Fortunately, that he kind of fell through, especially last night. Any hopes he had of winning disappeared last night with the 3 interceptions in the first quarter. But I also had a push on for Ian Book. As a Notre Dame guy, I watch him more than any other quarterback, more than any other team. And he to me, he's the best play. I would say the best managing a game. He's the best at it. But the problem that when they lost to Clemson, he lost any hope. Fell right out. There was a push.
If he wins that game, he might win the Heisman.
If he wins that game, he's definitely in the top 4. He may even win the Heisman. Now the question is, Do they give it to Lawrence because he's the sexy,
That's my
choice?
worry.
My worry is that they give it Lawrence, he missed one, maybe 2 games for COVID.
Yeah, two. Yep.
2 games for COVID. So there's 2 games right there that are gone.
Yep.
And, so this kind of brings back to the Ohio State thing. Can you give it to Lawrence even though he missed 2 games?
Right. I'm with you 100%. I think Devontae Smith's the best player in college football. And this year, I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence can't be better than him, but this year he's such a joy to watch. Like he's like a track runner, but he's playing football. And he's not afraid to take a hit, and he'll lay some too when he catches the ball. Like I don't know if I've seen a faster college player like Matt. I really don't know, because he can do everything, but I worry about Lawrence too, because everything comes back to politics. And wouldn't it be nice for Trevor Lawrence, who's only lost one start in college, he's going to go first overall, and he caps it off by him winning the Heisman. Now, it's a bit different because the committee doesn't decide, it's the football writers, but I mean, let's be honest, they're just as fucking corrupted as the committee. So does it really make a difference?
The one thing I'm a little worried about is Alabama has so many weapons, right? Their running back was fifth in the voting.
Najee Harris.
Najee Harris. So the question is, can they look at this and say, no, the success of Devonta Smith, does that come from,
Mac Jones,
another Heisman candidate throwing him the ball?
Right.
And could it be one of those things where, if you're thinking about voting for,
kind of like McDavid, Draisaitl.
Exactly. Where half go to Mac Jones, half go to Smith. And because of that, break off, the people who voted for Lawrence ends up winning.
Right.
Because they don't know who to vote for in Alabama because they have so many weapons.
Yeah. I'm not going to be mad if he wins it, because he's got 22 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, completing 70% of his passes. But I just think Smith he's just a game changer this year in college football. And Alabama had, Jalen Waddle, who is going to be a first-round pick receiver. Mechie the third, who's a Canadian playing for Alabama, who's actually looks pretty damn good too. But, he's got, I think he might be the best receiver to ever play at Alabama. And that's saying something with Julio Jones, Amari Cooper being there before him. But it'll be an interesting vote. But I still think he can get the win.
I think so too. Like I said, I wouldn't be mad if any of those three win. I mean, Trask, after last night, he's out.
Yeah, he's
out. He was the first quarterback since 2015 to throw 3 interceptions in the first quarter in a bowl game. Any bowl game, not a big bowl game, any bowl game. Like that just kills your chances. But in saying that, looking at Smith, I was looking at some mock drafts, and they have him going a lot lower than I thought he would. Like they have him in like the mid-teens, which as a Patriots fan, I am licking my chops. And if he drops to the Patriots and they don't take him, there's not much that I can say would put me over the top and be done, but I would be done with the Patriots if they pass on him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I looked at Todd McShay's mock draft before we came on too. And yeah, he has him as a really high. He had him high, but say like Mel Kiper, who does the opposite of him, like you said, had him like 16th. And I was like, what? I think he's good enough. Receivers don't go early in drafts. Like, they go mid-teens, like you mentioned. Like Jerry Jeudy, I think, went 17th. We saw Ruggs go 14th, and then CeeDee Lamb went 17th in last year's draft. I think he could be a top 10 pick. I think he's that good. Like, I don't know. For a team that's close and needs a weapon, he could be a really good ad.
For sure. I hope he
maybe
drops.
The Texans.
Yeah, that would be a great spot for him.
Because, well, they don't got Bill O'Brien to trade away great talent anymore, so maybe they'll actually keep him.
Oh yeah, that Hopkins trade. I mean, that's one that you're looking at as a If you're a Texans fan, you must just be disgusted with that.
Yeah. How did the owners sign off on that? I don't know. That's another podcast, but let's talk about Trask just before we move on a little bit. You mentioned him his game last night, but in the mock drafts, he was I seen him as low as say 17, and I've seen him like 25th. Do you think last night knocked him out of the first round?
I mean, it didn't help bump him up any. I
Yeah.
mean, he didn't jump into the top 10 for last night.
No, no.
It's bad that the most spark that Florida had last night was when they brought in their other quarterback.
Jones, yeah.
They brought him in and he ran the ball and he actually looked pretty good. And then they took him out. They brought Trask in and Trask couldn't get anything going. I think he scored 3 more points and they took him back out and went with when you get benched in a bowl game as a Heisman finalist,
Yeah.
it's really tough to see. I mean, you never want to judge off one game though. You know, you never want to throw it away off one game.
No, he didn't play great in the LSU game either, though.
But that's the problem. That LSU game was their biggest game of the year.
Yeah.
If they win that game, they have a real good chance of potentially making that top 4.
Yeah.
And they lose to an LSU team who was terrible this year.
Oh,
terrible. And
yeah, they're so bad.
They were terrible, and they lose that game. And if you're, someone drafting, if you're looking at that as a scout or GM of an NFL team, you got to think he may drop out of the first round. I think he's going to be a late first rounder.
Yeah, somebody might trade up and get him.
I mean, the teams that need quarterbacks are taking the quarterbacks early.
Right. I think an interesting team to watch will be Pittsburgh, just because Big Ben's not getting any. I think he'll play another year, but to have an heir apparent behind him might be a good idea. I'm not saying that's Trask. That could be Mac Jones. That could be, that could be Sam Darnold if the Jets decide to move on from him. But a team like Pittsburgh could be the Green Bay of last year and just trade up and scoop one up.
So you took the words right in my mouth. Look what, whether drafting Love was the right move or not, I don't think it was, but it's sure as hell lit a fire under Rodgers. He could win the MVP this year. Yeah. And maybe that's something you do with Pittsburgh. Maybe you draft someone, to take over in a couple years.
Yeah. And another thing about Trask is, Kyle Pitts missed 3 games and he doesn't look the same when Pitts is not on the field, because Pitts is another first round easy. I think he's the best tight end in college football, and it's not even that close. Maybe Watermeyer at Texas A&M, he's pretty good too, but Trask Kyle Pitts, just looks like the real deal. And when he's not on the field, Trask struggles to find offense.
Yeah, so that kind of worries me if I'm a GM that, if your best guy's out, you can't make plays with anyone else. And that showed last night that,
yeah.
I mean, in fairness, there were some guys dropping some balls, but he also made some bad throws. And, look what, you'll make fun of me here as a Tom Brady guy, but look what Brady showed, the last few years in New England that, even though he didn't have much to work with, he could still make things happen. Mm-hmm. So a good quarterback can make things happen when he doesn't have much around him.
Yep.
So Trask missing his main tight end and not being able to make plays, it's not a great look going into a draft.
No, I see your point. I mean, Brady went 12-4 last year in New England with not much. I mean, Edelman, I think Edelman's going to retire after this year myself. I don't know. He seems to be beaten up.
He's pretty banged up, and, he's done what he's need to do. He's made his money. He's won his championships. Why don't you just leave? And that way, you're able to walk when you're 40.
Right. Exactly. But what about Trask to New England?
Well, there's an interesting thing. So Trask, if I'm the Patriots though, you don't take maybe in the second round. Yeah. I mean, if he's still there in the second round, I'd be okay with that pick, but not in the first round. They need so many. The Patriots need to either trade for a quarterback or make Stidham your guy for next year. But if they draft a quarterback, that's just a missed opportunity for so many other spots.
Yeah, I think at their spot, they'll be able to get a good receiver. Maybe Pitts. I'd be nervous not to take him because I think he's gonna go pretty high. But they need to lose to the Jets so they can get a better pick this weekend.
Go Jets. Yeah. Jets are on a roll. Jets are a wagon right now. Hop on that Jets wagon.
Yeah. No, it'd be interesting because I think you're right. They'll be right in the catbird seat to pick up a good position player, which they desperately need. And Bill, this is not the year to take a D tackle. Do not take a chance on the D tackle who's in rehab. Take a player who's a known entity here.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more on that one. And if they take another DB, oh man. But that would just be so Patriots to do it.
Oh yeah, it's like Kyle Pitts is right there. Like he's just, and they'll be like, oh, we'll take the kid out of Troy.
Yeah, the project no one knows about.
Yeah,
He can do everything. Great special teams player.
yeah, he's got a great work ethic, great kid. You know, we love him. Oh, yeah, that's oh that might happen. Who knows? So let's get into the two games. Alabama, Notre Dame. What do your Irish have to do to keep this game close?
To keep this game close, it has to be the most boring college football game you've ever watched in a playoff, in my opinion. They cannot get into a shootout. It just can't happen. Notre Dame doesn't play that style. What Ian Book's going to have to be a superstar. And what I mean by that is he's not going to have to go out and throw for 400 yards. He's going to have to manage a game. He's going to have to get third downs. The problem against the Clemson game is they had so many opportunities at 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, and they didn't capitalize, and they have to capitalize on those third downs. They have to be able to run the ball, which no one has been able to do against Alabama this year. So we'll see how that goes. But they're going to have to, get chunk plays, 5, 6, 7-minute drives, and then end up with touchdowns at the end of those drives.
Yeah.
They can't be throwing for bombs and going, 2nd 10, 3rd and 10, and 3 and outs, because we know that Alabama will score points. Now, the question is, the defensive coordinator for Notre Dame has signed he is going to Vanderbilt next year to be their head coach. Mm-hmm. He's already decided that. Now, is he going to be focused on Notre Dame, or is he going to be focused on
Vanderbilt? I always find that greasy when they still coach and they're still there. Like, they're not 100% committed.
There's no way.
There's no way.
And he has to be for them to have any chance. Brian Kelly and the rest of the coaching staff have to put a game plan in place to, limit Alabama. Like, not stop Alabama, because you're not stopping Alabama. They're going to score, but you're going to have to limit them to, I think, if you can keep them under 20, you have a chance of winning. Now, that's a lot to ask, but that's a lot to ask. And, I don't know. I watched the movie Miracle about once a year. And this is going to have to be, this is going to have to be a miracle where, we play them 10 times. They may beat us 9, but not tonight.
Yeah.
Not tonight. Tonight's our time, boys.
Yeah. They need Kyron Williams to be a star for sure.
Absolutely.
He's a damn good back. I like him a lot. I like watching him play. I think he's a great back. I agree about Ian Book. Just be a game manager. I think that term gets really, I think, misconstrued as something negative. Like, for a long time, Tom Brady was a game manager and he won Super Bowls. So he wasn't towards the end of his run in New England, but those first 4 or 5 years, if anybody tells me he wasn't a game manager, I'll say, well, go look at his passing yard totals. He wasn't exactly lighting it up, but he can't turn the ball over. Like you said, nobody's run against Alabama. They've allowed the least amount of rush yards all season, but you got to try and mix it up. What teams I think do a lot is they run the ball on first down, and they do it every time, and it's so predictable. Like, run Ian Book, run pass options, get him some bootlegs. He's an athletic guy, so allow him to use his legs too to your advantage.
For sure. And I think one thing that's going to have to happen is there's going to have to be a special teams play made by Notre Dame.
Agreed.
They're going to have to either run something back for a touchdown, or I have to block a
field goal and return it, or
goal. Something on the special teams end is going to happen for them, because if not, I'm going to be cheering for Notre Dame. Obviously, I'm going to take Notre Dame on the spread. I'm not going to take them to win outright.
Do you know?
The number's close to 20 right now, which is the biggest number that has ever been for a college football playoff.
Yeah,
so I'm going to take Notre Dame on the points. I'm not going to take.
I probably would too.
Yeah, but in saying that, if Notre Dame doesn't play the right way, and if they let Alabama score early, this thing could be a blowout. Notre Dame does not
know by the first quarter how this game's going to go.
Yeah, Notre Dame does not come back on teams.
If it's 14-0 in the first 8 minutes, the game's over. You can turn it off.
Yeah, exactly. You might as well go watch something else. You might as well go out, go for a run.
Yeah.
Honestly, in the cold, you're going to
Yeah.
have more fun than watching the
Grab
game.
another beer, wake
Yeah.
up, second nap.
Because, I mean, but Notre Dame is a good team. Let's
Oh
not
yeah.
get
Oh no,
they,
they are. They're very good.
they got there for a reason. They lost one game all year and they lost to a Clemson team who could potentially win a national championship.
Yep.
So they, in my opinion, Notre Dame still does deserve to be in that top four.
Do you think
You
they should
know,
have been third over Ohio State?
yeah. Well, yes. Yes.
But
I
you,
don't, I
but
think,
we know why, because they didn't want us. We did. Nobody wanted to see Clemson Notre Dame the third time.
well, yeah, exactly. I don't want to see it for the third time, but I think Notre Dame should have been fourth behind a Texas A&M at third or an Oklahoma at third.
Right. Right.
But I mean, it's going to be an interesting game. I really hope that they can keep it close. I mean, obviously, I want them to win. I'm cheering for them. It would be a great thing for Notre Dame because if you look in years past, Notre Dame has never been able to win the big game when it matters.
Yeah.
The last time they made a national championship final was when they only selected 2 teams to go, and half their team was dating fake girlfriends at the time. So Manti Te'o,
Yeah.
So the question is, can they
love it.
win a playoff game?
Yeah.
I would love to see them. They'd be the upset of the year if
Mhm.
they won, which is crazy to say the upset of the year in the semifinals of a national championship, but it really would be, and they can do it. But I mean, I'm glad it's not a best of 3 or a best of 5 or a best of 7. I'm glad it's a one game. Anything can happen in a game.
Yeah. I think if I'm the Notre Dame defense, I think I sell out and stop the pass and try just my damnedest to do something about the run. Just take my chances. I double Devontae Smith the whole game. I don't care. Mechie can go one-on-one. Anybody else can. I'm not letting Devontae Smith beat me.
Yeah.
He'll beat me with 2 guys. But I think I focus more on the pass game, and Najee Harris is phenomenal. But you got to I think you got to focus more on one, because if you got Devontae Smith one-on-one the whole game, that's going to be a nightmare for Notre Dame.
No, I'm with you on the fact that if you're gonna lose to the run. Yeah. Lose to the. Don't let the best players beat you.
Mm-hmm.
If their second or third receiver is going to go off for 150, 200 yards, then you know what? Great job, man. But don't let potentially the Heisman winner, favorite to win the Heisman, go off and have a day. But he's going to want to. He's going to want to prove why he's the Heisman.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So to me, it's the more intriguing maybe not the more intriguing matchup. It's the one I'm looking forward to the most because I'm obviously a Notre Dame fan. But this game, it's either going to be really close and might be the game of the year, or it could be an absolute blowout and if it is a blowout, Notre Dame's chances of getting back into the top 4 really drop for the next couple of years.
Because it would be the second blowout in 3 years.
Exactly. If you look at how they've done in those bowl games, in the Final Four, they haven't done well.
No.
So if they lose another one, it's really just going to keep knocking them down, and you only get so many chances.
Yeah, I'll ask you this because you're a Notre Dame fan. They're playing the ACC this year. Normally, they don't have a conference, which I just think is a cop-out move, but nevertheless. Do you think they should stay in the ACC?
Do I think they should stay in the ACC? Yes. Do I think will they? No, because they're TV rights. Notre Dame brings in a lot of TV rights, and the money that those TV rights pay to have them show exclusively Notre Dame. NBC buys Notre Dame, and they cover Notre Dame football. So I think that they will go back to going no conference. Should they? No. I think it makes it tougher because, like we said, as much as we don't think those bowl games matter, at least you get into a ACC championship game. Right?
Yeah.
So at least it's another thing you can add to the resume on a season. You'd be like, oh, well, I won the ACC or I lost in the ACC final.
Right.
But I think they'll go back once, say the world goes back to somewhat normal.
Yeah.
I think that they will, and next year they will play in non-conference again.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it'd be better for them long-term if they stay, just because I think they can get a new TV deal. I mean, they get the ACC, NBC, I think will pay big money for it because they can't let ESPN get everything. Because ESPN bought Alabama's rights that CBC has right now for the SEC. ESPN's getting them in like 3-4 years. So I plus I like Mike Tirico calling a game. He's really good. I mean, NBC's got some good people calling football games. So, but I think they could still play in the ACC. But in a normal year, like you mentioned, they can play out of conference games. They could still play against Michigan or whoever that they'd want to face.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like I said, like you just said, I've enjoyed the broadcasts of the Notre Dame games this year. I've really enjoyed them actually. But it'll be interesting to see what happens on that front. I want them to stay. Chances are I think they go back to non-conference.
Yeah, no, we agree there. So second game, you kind of said maybe the game that could be potentially closer if we just on paper, Clemson, Ohio State. And first thing I thought of, Matt, is this game for Justin Fields bigger than just a chance at the national championship? Because for me, it is.
He needs to win this game.
Yeah.
End of story. It has to be a win.
Or at least play great.
I hope I do not like Clemson as a Notre Dame guy, especially this year. I hope Clemson demolishes them tomorrow. I hope they beat them by 40 just because of the decision to get them in. I hope they go out and Clemson sends a message and spanks them by 40. They probably won't, probably be a close game, but I hope they do. But back to the Fields question, like as mentioned, we talked about earlier, Fields really hasn't looked good this year. I loved Fields last year. Fields was really, really good last year. I thought NFL ready last year. This year, not so much. But Ohio State is fresher because of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
They're only playing 6 games, and Clemson playing 11 or 12, whatever the number was. But Fields needs to go out and have a big day. He's got to play good, because if he doesn't, he's another one who really could drop. He's ranked, I think, right, 9th or 10th in those mock drafts, right around the top 10. He could drop to late first round if this happens, if he has a bad game.
Yeah, no, exactly. They've won 2 games this year against their 2 hardest tough opponents. He's threw for 112 against Indiana with 3 interceptions, and he threw for 108 with 2 interceptions against Northwestern. And other than that, like we mentioned before, Michigan State, Rutgers, like who gives a shit? That's nothing to brag about against those teams playing well. So I think it's a huge game for him. I think if he could beat Clemson and Trevor Lawrence, and Clemson's got a good defense too. Like they're solid. If he could beat Clemson in this game, it would help the committee because it would validate them. I still think about the committee, Matt. I don't even think they want Ohio State to win this game. They want Alabama, Clemson in the national championship. But I think it would be a great NFL story and a draft story if Justin Fields just balled out and had a great game for Ohio State tomorrow.
Now, if Notre Dame wins the first game, I'll be cheering for Ohio State, because Clemson they match up. You saw a few weeks ago, Notre Dame can't do anything against Clemson D. Mm-hmm. So if Notre Dame finds a way to win that first game, I will be cheering for Ohio State, even though I don't like Ohio State or Clemson as a Notre Dame guy. I respect Clemson because what they've done over the past few years.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to the Fields. He has to have a day. They have to run the ball as well, but he has to, when it comes to throwing, he's got to make some plays. He can't throw interceptions.
Right. And the Big 12 made another change. They had it was usually 21 days that a player that tests positive for COVID has to sit out. It got switched to like 17, just nice enough that it's the day of the game tomorrow, 17th day, for Chris Olave, their top receiver, can somehow play in this game. I don't know if they just picked 17 at random, or I don't know how they came up with that decision, but
what a weird number, huh? Yeah. Weird how that 17 falls on, your top receiver falls on the game day,
Yeah.
Weird how that rule go not from 21 down to 14.
No.
21 down to 17. Like, come on, guys. Yeah. Like you're
just say we want him to play. Like it actually does better because you're insulting our intelligence. Like
we see what's going on.
Yeah.
Like
writing's
just say,
on the wall.
Exactly. It's just another bad look by the NCAA or the NCAA, man. Just a terrible look. But it's going to be a great game, I think. I think it's going to come down to the wire. If Fields can play well, we know they can run. We know Ohio State can run the ball. Mm-hmm. Can they run against Clemson? We'll see. It's going to be one of those things, this game, where one mistake could cost you the game, whether it be a pick six whether it be a fumble at a key time. I think one mistake, early fourth quarter could be the difference maker in this game.
That's one thing for Ohio State that gives them a chance, because Travis Etienne, who I think is a really good player, but he's been fumbling all year long. He's lost 5 fumbles, and you see in the NFL now, the new technique is get your fist and punch the ball. So if I'm the defensive coordinator of Ohio State, that's what I'm telling my team. Like, we're not that talented this year, so we got to try to balls to the wall and try to make something happen, because Clemson on paper is better offensively than Ohio State, and defensively, like, they're just a better team on paper.
I think Clemson's going to score points, and like you said, if I'm a defense, I think you sell out. I think you say, you know what, if we miss a tackle and give up a 70-yard rushing touchdown, it's not the end of the world, because we are going to score points. But I think we should go for some pick sixes, go for some try and get him to fumble.
Mm-hmm.
Go for some punches, try and knock that ball out. If you don't knock the ball out, he gets an extra couple yards. It's not the end of the world. For a Notre Dame team, it would be, because Notre Dame struggles to put up points. But for a team like Clemson, who can score, then I think, like Ohio State, I think you try for those all or nothing plays, maybe.
No, I agree with you, because if he's got all his weapons and he's playing well, they can match them score for score. And I think I'm hoping this game is close, because I don't think the first one will be. So I'm hoping that we get a better game in the nightcap. But before we move on to game picks, let's talk about Dabo Swinney, the head coach of Clemson. He's kind of like us. He's kind of, I think he has different reasons for doing this than us, but the coaches have a poll where they rank the top 25, and Dabo Swinney had Ohio State ranked 11th, and every other, just for reference, like Nick Saban at Alabama had Texas A&M in the Final Four, which you could say he did that because they play in the same conference, or you could just say because that's what should have happened. But what do you make of Dabo being so boisterous and kind of having this bravado before the game against Ohio State?
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. I mean, like you said, he's definitely doing it for different reasons.
Yeah.
He's not doing it because, he thinks that,
A&M got robbed.
Be there. Yeah, he's doing that just to get in the head of Ohio State, stir the pot, keep stirring. And then he doubled down. He doubled down on it the other day. He said, they're a good team, but I stand by where I had them ranked. And the main thing about college football is we know how grueling a football game is. And Ohio State's coming in only playing 6 games, where these other teams are coming in playing 11 and 12 games.
Right.
And the fact that you can rank a team like, take Texas A&M, who go out and lose 1 game all year.
To Alabama.
Alabama, probably the best team in
number one. Yeah.
Number one. That's the only team they lost to, right? And to say that they shouldn't be there, they should be ranked behind a team that only played 6 games, and four of those games weren't against anyone any good. And even Northwestern's good, but they're not.
They got no offense.
House. They never, Ohio State never beat a powerhouse all year. They never had a statement win. So I love the ranking. I think they're ranked exactly where they should be. I mean, if they would have played 9 or 10 games, then yes, put them in the top 4. But I think they should be ranked 9th or 10th, 11th.
No, I agree. Yeah, and for me, I think it's apt. And also, people would say, well, Coastal Carolina plays in the Sun Belt. They haven't beaten anybody. Well, Ohio State hasn't beaten anybody. Coastal Carolina beating BYU is more impressive than Ohio State beating Indiana to me. That's just personal preference, but I think it's more of an impressive win.
I completely agree. I hate that we agree on everything. I want to argue with you something.
I know.
We're both logical. And
I know. We're just
it's just a logical thing that a team that goes 6-0, who doesn't beat anyone, shouldn't be ranked higher than a team that goes 11-1, where their only loss is to probably the national champion.
Right. When they say life's not fair, I mean, that's the definition of life's not fair.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're Ohio State, I mean, wouldn't it be just crazy if Ohio State goes and wins the national championship? Talk about the controversy that would bring.
Oh,
now that would bring some people talking.
Jim Harbaugh would have to buy some new khakis, because the Zarsen would be a little bit brown, I think.
Man, the fact Jim Harbaugh still is in Michigan is crazy. I think That's a controversy in itself.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's a whole other story. I don't know how money. That's why, but he's done nothing there. He's done
Absolutely nothing. And I love watching it because one of my best friends is a big Michigan fan.
Mhm.
So I love just piling it on him. When they went to when Michigan this year, I just would just send them the scores and just nothing else. Like you didn't have to put anything else in the text. Just
Right.
send them the score of the game. That's all you need to do, and it speaks for itself.
I don't even think he wants to be there. I think he wants to go back to the NFL. I think if you had an open moment with him and he was just free, I think he'd tell you, yeah, I want to go back and coach in the NFL. Because that's where he's had his most success.
I could see it. Now back to our the rankings. Where would you have Ohio State ranked, Jug?
Yeah, I definitely have Alabama, Clemson. I'd probably put Notre Dame 3 just because I'd probably put them 4th if I had to schedule games. I get that. But just looking at it logically, they lost to Clemson. So their one loss against that team. A&M 3rd or 4th because, again, they lost to Alabama. So that's fine. I'd have Cincinnati 5th for me. Oklahoma right there. BYU, I'd have them 9th or 10th. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Like,
think
yeah.
that's exactly where they should be, and I think that's why Dabo Sweeney put them there. And even yeah, he might have said maybe it's because stir the pot, but he's also right about where they should be. He's not wrong.
Yeah.
Like if you're just a fan like us tuning in and watching, there's no way that you can sit there and say that they should be in the top four, and they may be one of the best four teams
Right.
in the nation. That's not what we're saying here. I'm not saying that they aren't.
No, that they're
They
not
aren't
talented and they're
not
not.
counted, but put them in the game last night. Don't put them in the top four. It's a joke.
Yeah. And it's the Big Ten's fault for starting the season late. They didn't have to. They said they came out with this stance. Well, we're going to be all about safety and medical shit, which I'm fine with. If that's your stance, that's fine. COVID, take it seriously. I got no issue with that. SEC, ACC decide to play. Again, no issue with that from me. You want to play, you can do it safely. I want to watch football. Let's go. But then the Big Ten says, well, we think we can play. And they start in November and they get a team into the Final Four. I mean, this season more than ever, all those teams must just feel like, why the hell did we play? Like,
if I'm a Cincinnati, why did I just play that season?
mm-hmm.
Obviously it's great for the program. They're going to get some recruits in because of it, but it must be a kick in the balls because it's embarrassing that you can go out and take them, especially Texas A&M, who is a moneymaker. Like, how do you not get them? If it's all about money, how do you not get Texas A&M in that top four?
Yeah. What a flawed system. If they can only get us on there, we wouldn't care about the TV. We'd want to to me, it's just put the 4 best teams. Yeah. And I get it that it's a TV product, but I think there's enough college football diehard fans. I mean, you see them in a normal season, they're filling 100,000 seat stadiums. And I think a lot of people are going to tune in on New Year's Day to Alabama A&M and Clemson, Notre Dame, or however you want to put those forward, just as much as seeing Ohio State. But that's just one man's opinion.
No, that's two guys' opinion with you. But like we said, as much as we hate it, we're both going to be tuning in tomorrow regardless.
Yeah,
so
they got us.
Maybe they know more than we do, right?
Yeah, clearly they do because yes, I'm not going to miss a snap. So fuck them. Let's move on to game picks. Alabama against your Irish. Who do you got?
I like the Cinderella story.
You don't really mean that.
Man, I knew, I've been dreading this question.
Yeah, no, I think we've lost Matt, so he's cut out here, but I'll go over my game picks before we sign off here. I got Alabama defeating Notre Dame quite easily. I think they'll win by a good margin. Probably, Matt said the over-under is 20 points. I think Alabama will win. Are we back here?
I think we're back.
Okay, so yeah, just give you said you're taking the Cinderella.
Yeah, I like Notre Dame by 1 point. I'm taking them by 1.
Okay.
If we're like I said, if it was a best of 3, I like Alabama. Best of 5, I like Alabama. Best of 7, I like Alabama. But it would be wrong of me as a fan not to take them. Do I think if they win, it's a fluke? I do. I do think if you're a betting guy, if you're smart, I think if you want to make a quick easy buck, you take Alabama outright. But I will be taking Notre Dame spread on the game. If it's plus 20, I'm taking the spread. But if Notre Dame loses to Alabama, I'm not going to be upset. Alabama, they're the best team in the league this year. They're the best team in the country.
Yeah.
But I gotta take Notre Dame by 1. Just hope for a miracle.
Yeah. I understand that for your fandom. I'm going to take Alabama. I think Notre Dame will cover, though. So I think it'll be closer. Maybe Mac Jones won't play the fourth quarter, so it gets a little closer because of that.
Oh, just kicking a guy while he's down, eh?
Well,
oh, that's
I'm
cruel.
hoping I want a close game. That's what I hope for. I hope for a close game, but I think Alabama will win. Maybe Mac Jones plays the whole game. Who knows? He needs the reps. So.
Oh man.
Clemson, yeah, Clemson, Ohio State.
Clemson by 10. That's what I like I said, I like Clemson by I'd love to see Clemson spank them, but I also want a close game as a fan.
Yeah.
But as a, cynic of the committee, I'd love to see Clemson beat them by 35. But I think Clemson by maybe 7 to 10 points is what I think is going to happen. And then you get your game 3, what everyone's looking for, Notre Dame Clemson in the finals. May the best team win.
Who doesn't want to watch that?
May the best team win.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, realistically, I think Alabama could win the whole thing. Chances are I think Alabama wins the national championship this year.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I agree. I think Clemson, I'm similar to you with the point spread. I'll go Clemson by 2 touchdowns. Just I think they might pile it on late, but Alabama, Clemson, I think came into the season as the 2 best teams, and I think we'll see them finish the year the same way.
Yeah, very easily could happen. I think the one thing that was good, it was nice that we got a college football season this year.
Right, yeah.
There was a talk, or there was a long time there where we didn't think we'd get any college football, and I actually enjoy college football more than the NFL. There's things that I obviously don't like about college football, but there's some things that I think college football does way better than the NFL with, number one, I could do a full podcast with you going on about pass interference in the NFL. And I love the way in college football, they let them play. I like that they let the receivers and cornerbacks battle for a ball a little more than the NFL. I find college football, there's more mistakes, and teams, when there's mistakes, it makes for more exciting football. Like you go watch a junior hockey game. Some junior hockey games are way more entertaining than NHL games.
No, that Russia-Sweden game last night was unreal.
Amazing game. Unfortunately, I fell asleep in the third,
but
amazing game to watch. And you take the NFL, you get up 10 points, you're just running the ball, But in college football, you get up 10, you're trying to stomp on them. You're trying to beat them by 40. And I love that. I find that very entertaining. Don't get me wrong, I love the NFL too, but it was nice that we got a college football season.
Yep.
Now the question remains, who's going to win? Notre Dame Fighting Irish, baby. Great way to end it today.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm so pleased we got a college football season. Like you, I was worried we wouldn't, and that kind of takes up my Saturdays. And without it, me not having a life just gets less and less credence because I'd be sitting here doing nothing. So at least I can say, hey, no, I can't come out to this function. I'm watching college football. So it gives me an out.
Exactly. There's nothing better than being a little hungover on a Saturday on the couch watching some college football. And college football, I love that it starts at 1.
Me too.
Not 2. I love the 1:00 start. It's great.
Yeah.
No, thanks for having me on, Jug. And, I want to wish you a happy new year and looking forward to 2021.
No, absolutely. Happy New Year to you as well. Obviously, some good news with the hockey front coming back in the NHL. So I'll have you back on soon. We'll be talking about some hockey.
Absolutely, buddy. Appreciate it. Say hi to the family, and I'll be talking in 2021. And I'm sure by that, I mean texting you tomorrow about the games.
Right.
So
Yeah. Exactly. So for Matt Wright, I'm Noah Warren. We'll be talking soon here and To The Point. Happy New Year and happy holidays.